Early morning breeze was cool and gentle, brushing across the city like a soft whisper. From the rooftop of Aurora Heights, Brightford's most prestigious high-rise, the world below looked quiet and distant. Leah Bright sat alone, her knees pulled close to her chest, her long dark hair fluttering in the wind. Dressed in a simple grey hoodie and jeans, she looked nothing like the heiress of Bright Holdings, one of the largest companies in the city. Her eyes stared blankly at the horizon, her mind lost in heavy thoughts. Just 3 months ago, she had returned from the United States after the sudden death of her father, Mr. Ernest Bright. He had been more than a father. He was her teacher, her hero, and the very reason Bright Holdings had grown into a giant. Real estate, tech, logistics, even household essentials. The company had its hands in everything, and now all of it rested on Leah's young shoulders. Her mother, Mrs. Helena Bright, had tried to convince her to stay calm and let the board handle things for a while, but Leah had insisted. "If I don't take control now, everything Papa built will slip away," she had said. Still, the pressure was too much. Meetings, expectations, fake smiles, whispers from the board, all of it felt like a weight pressing against her chest. So, she had left the mansion that morning, telling no one. She just needed space, a place to breathe. That's how she found herself here, on the rooftop of Aurora Heights, the very building where the city's elite lived in marble-floored apartments with glass walls and golden taps. She hadn't planned to end up here. She had simply wandered until her feet brought her to the top of this high place. Now, seated on the cold concrete edge, Leah felt a strange calm. The city below seemed so small, the sky above was endless. Here she didn't feel like the CEO, she was just a girl trying not to fall apart. Far below the peaceful rooftop of Aurora Heights, the security post near the entrance gate buzzed softly with static from a walkie-talkie. The city was beginning to wake, lights flickering on, horns honking in the distance. Inside the post, a young man in a blue security uniform stretched his arms and glanced at the wall clock. It was nearly 6 a.m. Desmond Okocha sighed and stepped outside. The night had been long and quiet. He was tired, but alert. He had been working at Aurora Heights for just over 6 months now. It wasn't the most exciting job, but it paid enough to cover his modest rent and keep his small kitchen stocked. That was enough for him. He stood at the post, arms crossed, the morning breeze brushing across his clean-shaven face. He liked these moments, the calm before the bustle. He checked his watch again. The day shift team would arrive soon. As he looked up, just casually scanning the tall, beautiful building he had guarded so many nights, something caught his eye. A figure, a person, at the very top, on the roof. His heart skipped. It was a woman standing alone, too close to the edge. Desmond's body went cold. He had heard the stories, people getting overwhelmed, people jumping. No, 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 he muttered to himself. Without thinking, he bolted. Past the elevators, up the emergency stairwell, his boots pounding each step. His chest tightened, not from exhaustion but fear. He didn't know who she was, but none of that mattered now. "Please don't jump," the words repeated in his head like a drumbeat. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, Leah had stood up, ready to leave. The silence had helped. Her thoughts were clearer. She wasn't all right, but she was better than when she came. She took one step back. Then it happened. Her foot slipped. She let out a small gasp as her balance wavered. The rooftop's edge suddenly felt thinner, the sky closer. Her heart raced. Then, before she could fall, strong arms caught her. She fell forward, startled, into someone's chest. Safe. Held. Leah looked up in shock. Desmond stood there, breathing hard, eyes wide with panic, but gentle, steady. For a long second, their eyes locked. Neither spoke. The city seemed to disappear around them. Just silence. And two strangers, staring at each other, hearts still racing for different reasons. Desmond still hadn't caught his breath. He held the young woman carefully, steadying her after her near slip, heart pounding from the mad dash up the stairs. But now that she was safe, standing in front of him, calm and unhurt, his panic slowly eased. I thought you were going to jump," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Leah looked at him, a little surprised by the honesty in his voice. She shook her head gently. No, I wasn't. Desmond let out a small breath of relief and nodded, stepping back slightly but still keeping his eyes on her. I've just heard stories, he added. You see someone on the edge like that, alone, this early, you panic. There was an awkward silence between them, not uncomfortable but unfamiliar, the kind of silence shared by strangers who, for a moment, stood too close to something real. Desmond cleared his throat and motioned toward a small ledge a few feet away. Do you mind if I sit for a bit? He asked. Leah nodded, and they both walked over to the ledge, sitting side by side. She hugged her knees again, her eyes on the soft light of the rising sun. He sat upright, arms on his knees, glancing at her now and then. I don't know what you're going through, Desmond began quietly, but I do know life can feel like too much sometimes. She didn't respond, so he continued gently. I grew up in a small town, nothing fancy. My parents didn't have much, but they tried. I lost them both before I turned 16. I bounced around from house to house, job to job. I've slept on benches, been laughed at in job interviews for the way I dressed. There were days I felt like disappearing, days I felt invisible. Leah's gaze slowly shifted toward him, her expression softening. But one thing I've learned, Desmond said, his voice steady now, is that no matter how long the night is, the morning comes. Things do fall into place, not all at once, but little by little. Leah smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. She had come up here feeling like the world was closing in on her. And now this stranger, thinking she was ready to jump, had poured out his heart without asking for hers. There was something innocent about him, kind, simple in the best way. Thank you, she said quietly, her voice warmer than before. Desmond shrugged, a bit shy now. I just didn't want to read about another sad story in the news. I'm glad you're okay. She stood up, brushing her hands together. The wind lifted a few strands of her hair. He rose as well, watching her. I should go, she said. All right, Desmond replied, offering a gentle smile. Just take care of yourself, yeah? She paused, then nodded. As she turned to leave, she looked over her shoulder and said, My name's Leah. He smiled. Nice to meet you, Leah. I'm Desmond. She nodded again, then walked away quietly. And just like that, she was gone. Desmond remained there for a while, watching the sky grow brighter. He didn't know who she really was, but something told him he'd see her again. The early morning calm had returned by the time Desmond Okocha made his way back down from the rooftop. His mind lingered on the girl, Leah. Her eyes had held a storm, but her voice in the end had been soft. He didn't know what her story was, but he hoped she'd be okay. As he approached the security post, his superior, Andrew Benson, was already waiting, arms crossed, brows furrowed. Andrew was in his late 40s, with a stern face and a voice that always sounded like it was halfway to shouting. Okocha, he barked, the moment Desmond appeared. Desmond straightened his back. Yes, sir. Where were you? You left your post. There was someone on the rooftop, Desmond replied calmly. A young woman. I thought she... Andrew cut him off. You thought? He sneered. You left your station, ran across the building, all because you thought someone was in trouble. Desmond tried to explain, his tone still respectful. She wasn't a resident. At least I don't think she was. She looked like she needed help. Did I ask you to think? Andrew snapped. You don't talk to anyone who stays in this building unless you are spoken to first. You know the rules. Desmond clenched his jaw, but said nothing more. He gave a short nod and went back to his seat, his chest tight with frustration. What he didn't know was that Leah, watching from her car parked near the side entrance, had seen everything. She'd come back down quietly, curious about the security man who had spoken to her like she was a person, not a princess. She watched how Andrew berated him and how Desmond held his ground with quiet dignity. She didn't say a word, but she made a call. 3 days later, Desmond was called into the building's management office. He stepped in cautiously, unsure of why he'd been summoned. The HR manager smiled stiffly. Mr. Okocha, she said, due to a recommendation from higher authorities and your strong record, you've been promoted to Chief of Security for Aurora Heights. Congratulations. Desmond blinked, stunned. I don't understand. It's official. You start tomorrow. He left the office in disbelief. He hadn't applied for any promotion, nobody mentioned it. It just happened. And just like that, the whispers began. By the next week, rumors had spread like wildfire. He must be sleeping with someone powerful. Aaron Johnson, one of the younger guards, whispered to Andrew by the gate. Andrew scoffed. Probably some sugar mummy in one of those penthouses. These women have taste for rough, simple boys like him. They both laughed quietly. He's barely been here 6 months, Aaron added bitterly. Now he's walking around with authority like he owns the place. Andrew grunted. He got lucky, that's all. But mark my words, that luck will run out. Desmond could feel the shift. Colleagues who once greeted him casually now gave half smiles or avoided eye contact. Conversations would stop the moment he walked into the room. Even during briefings, he noticed side eyes and half-hidden smirks. Still, no one said anything to his face. He was now their superior. They couldn't confront him directly. So they hid behind whispers, behind jealousy, behind bitterness. And all the while, Desmond had no idea that the girl he'd saved on the rooftop, the quiet one who only gave her name as Leah, had been the one to change his life. It was late afternoon when Leah Bright stepped out of her black SUV and knocked on the modest wooden door of a small but cozy apartment located in the quieter part of Brightford. A gentle breeze carried the scent of roasted corn and fried yam from a nearby vendor. The door opened almost instantly. Leah Bright in my humble home? Naomi Okafor teased with a playful smirk, stepping aside to let her friend in. To what do I owe the honor? Leah grinned. I needed peace of mind, and your sarcasm always helps. Naomi rolled her eyes and plopped back down onto the couch. Leah joined her, kicking off her designer heels. You look like someone who just fell in love, Naomi teased, eyeing her friend closely. Is it that obvious? Leah looked down, trying to hide her smile. Naomi gasped. Wait. Oh my God. Don't tell me it's that look. Leah laughed softly. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe? Naomi leaned forward dramatically. Leah, you've been back for barely 3 months. Who is it? Who is the mysterious Prince Charming? Leah sighed dreamily. Desmond. Naomi blinked. Desmond. Desmond who? The security guard at Aurora Heights. Naomi burst into laughter. She laughed so hard she had to hold her stomach. You're telling me you, Leah Bright, heiress of Bright Holdings, is in love with a poor security guard? Leah crossed her arms, smirking. Says the daughter of the chief of police who left her father's mansion to live a humble life on an inspector's salary. Naomi froze, then grinned. Touché. They both burst into laughter, letting the room fill with warmth and comfort. When the laughter died down, Leah leaned back and said seriously, He doesn't know who I am. He spoke to me like I was a person. He was kind, sincere, no pretense. Naomi tilted her head, suddenly thoughtful. Well, that is rare. Leah nodded. I want to be close to him, so I'm buying a penthouse at Aurora Heights. Naomi raised an eyebrow. You what? Leah smiled. I want to be close without making it obvious, and I know you've been house hunting, so stay there. The place is big enough for 2. That way I can visit often, and my mother won't worry that I'm alone. Naomi frowned. Leah. I'm serious, Leah said. You'll be doing me a favor. Naomi shook her head. You're unbelievable. A billionaire heiress buying a luxurious penthouse just to be close to her crush. They both laughed again, falling sideways into each other like sisters. But beneath the laughter, something tender bloomed in Leah's chest, a feeling she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Naomi moved into the penthouse at Aurora Heights barely 2 weeks after that playful afternoon with Leah. The apartment was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, smart lighting, and a balcony that opened into the skies. It was more space than she needed, but she accepted it for one reason: Leah. And true to her word, Leah visited often, always unannounced, always quietly, always careful. She never entered through the main lobby. Instead, she slipped in through the private elevator meant for the VVIP residents. She wore dark shades and casual clothes and kept her head low, not because she was hiding from the world, but because she didn't want to run into Desmond. She wasn't ready for that yet, but she watched him from a distance. Through the window, across the lobby, in the reflection of the glass doors, she watched him. He was focused, sharp. He carried himself with calm confidence, greeting tenants politely, always alert. She smiled when he helped an old woman carry her groceries or bent slightly to give directions to a child. He was real, but he didn't know she was watching. One evening, Naomi returned home after a long shift. She dropped her bag on the kitchen counter and found Leah curled up on the sofa, sipping tea. "You were here again today?" Naomi asked, kicking off her shoes. Leah nodded. "I sat by the fountain in the lobby for an hour." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "He still hasn't run into you?" Leah smiled faintly. "Nope." Naomi shook her head and dropped onto the armrest beside her. "Leah, I know you're serious about him, but you do realize he's not exactly your type?" Leah looked up. "What does that mean?" Naomi exhaled. "He's low class. I mean, not in a bad way. He seems decent. But you're Leah Bright. You've only dated rich heirs, billionaires. Your family owns buildings. His family probably rents them." Leah's smile faded a little. Naomi saw it. "I'm just saying, be careful." Leah didn't reply. She just stared into her tea. A few days later, Leah resumed work at Bright Holdings, her late father's empire. The office was sleek and fast-paced. Everyone stood when she entered, eyes filled with respect and nerves. Her name carried power now, but it didn't bring her peace. Her mother, Mrs. Helena Bright, visited her at the office that afternoon. Dressed in her usual tailored gown and pearls, she spoke with the poise of a queen. "You're doing well," she said, handing Leah a cup of green tea. "Thank you, Mom." "But don't burn yourself out," Helena said. "You're a woman. You don't have to carry the world alone." Leah blinked. "Dad carried it." "Your father was a mature man," Helena said softly. "And you're not him. You need to find someone to lean on, someone strong enough to hold you when you're tired. Even if you want to lead the company, you don't have to do it alone." Leah looked down. Desmond's face flashed in her mind. His hands, his voice, the way he caught her, the way he didn't ask who she was. But he didn't know her. Not really. She was just Leah to him, a stranger with a quiet smile and nothing more. And she didn't know him either. Not truly. Just shadows, glances, and stories built in silence. She sipped her tea. "I'll think about it," she whispered. The conversation with her mother lingered in Leah's mind like perfume, sweet but heavy. Her mother's words echoed through her thoughts. "You need to find someone strong enough to hold you when you're tired." That night, Leah stood in front of the mirror in Naomi's room, dressed in an oversized hoodie, old slippers. The luxury makeup, the diamond earrings, the flawless curls, they were gone. She looked nothing like Leah Bright, heiress of Bright Holdings. Just Leah, a woman with nowhere to go. She didn't tell Naomi. She needed this to be real. At sunrise, Leah walked to the outer gate of Aurora Heights, sat quietly near the stone wall, and waited. Desmond Okocha was early that morning. Dressed in his neatly ironed uniform, he walked out of the security post with a flask of tea and his usual calm expression. Then he saw her. A woman, curled up near the gate, shivering. She looked like she hadn't eaten. Her clothes were damp from morning dew, her slippers worn thin. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Are you all right?" She looked up slowly, her voice soft and tired. "I have nowhere to go." "Wait. I know you, Lee. Leah, right?" Desmond asked, surprised. "Yes," she replied sharply. Desmond hesitated for a moment. Then without another word, he took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Come with me," he said. His apartment was small. One room, a small wooden table, a single mattress on the floor, and a tiny kitchen with a gas burner. Leah sat quietly as Desmond warmed up some leftover jollof rice. He placed a clean plate in front of her. "It's not much," he said, "but it's warm." She smiled faintly. "Thank you." That night, he laid out a clean wrapper on the mattress for her and moved to sleep on the worn-out couch near the window. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I do," he replied with a soft chuckle. "I was raised right." She lay on the mattress and stared at the ceiling for a long time. No man had ever taken care of her like this before, without knowing who she was. In the morning, Leah woke up to the smell of boiling tea. Desmond had left a note on the table. "Went for duty. Make yourself at home. Desmond." She smiled as she hugged the paper. She was convinced he was genuine. Over the next few days, they began spending more time together. Desmond returned from work each evening to find her cooking, sweeping, or humming quietly to the small radio in the corner. They talked. They laughed. They began to know each other. She told him she was a homeless orphan, had lost both parents, and never had proper schooling. She said she was trying to find her way in the world. No details, just fragments of a story that felt close to the truth but was far from it. Desmond listened carefully. He never judged. Then one evening while they shared boiled yam and red oil, he told her his story. About growing up poor, losing his parents' young age, moving from place to place, the fight that changed his life, the one that got him arrested, how he defended a boy from gang violence and paid the price, the whispers, the judgment, the need to start over. "I'm not proud of it," he said, "but I'm not ashamed either. I did the right thing." Leah's eyes softened. She understood him more now. As the days passed, Desmond noticed something else. Not to say how the meals she cooks taste funny, but she enjoys cooking. Leah was bossy and sassy, but in a funny, almost charming way. She gave instructions with confidence, teased him when his shirts were wrinkled, and always seemed to be sneaking off to make a quick call or send an important email. He once asked what she was always doing on her phone. She smiled and said, "I'm job hunting." Desmond believed her. He was happy to have someone with him. The days slipped by like warm evenings after a storm. Inside Desmond's humble apartment, laughter now lived. Shared meals, deep conversations, quiet glances, and light teasing had become their rhythm. What began as an act of kindness had turned into something deeper, something neither of them had dared to name. Desmond Okocha sat with Leah on the edge of the mattress one evening, their fingers grazing as they peeled roasted groundnuts together. A soft tune played from the radio, and the room smelled of fried plantain and hope. "I need to tell you something," Desmond said, his voice quieter than usual. Leah looked up, sensing his nervousness. "I know we haven't known each other for long," he continued, "but every day with you feels right. I've never been this comfortable with anyone, and it's not just comfort, it's..." He paused, searching for the words. "It's feelings. Real feelings." Leah's heart thumped. "I think I'm falling for you, Leah," he said gently, "and I don't want to pretend like I'm not." She stared at him, her eyes already brimming with warmth. "I've loved you since the first day we met," she said, smiling softly. "Even before I knew your name." Desmond blinked, a little surprised, a little stunned. Then slowly he leaned closer, and so did she. Their lips met in a kiss, slow, honest, and full of every quiet moment they had shared. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. 2 weeks passed in blissful simplicity, but reality always waits. One morning, while Desmond was at work, Leah stood by the window, her phone in hand, staring at a long list of urgent messages from the office. She couldn't avoid it any longer. Bright Holdings needed her. The board was waiting. Documents were piling up. Remote handling wasn't enough anymore. She scribbled a note, placed it carefully on the table, and walked out of the little home that had somehow come to mean everything to her. When Desmond returned later that day, the room felt empty. He spotted the note. "Desmond, I need to take care of some personal things. I don't know when I'll be back, but I promise we'll meet again soon. Leah. His chest tightened. He grabbed his phone and called her immediately. She picked up. Leah. Why did you leave like that? He asked, his voice low, almost trembling. I'm sorry, she said gently on the other end. I had to go. It's something I can't explain yet, but please, trust me. Silence. I miss you already, he finally whispered. I miss you too, she replied, more than you know. They said no more. They didn't have to. Leah returned to Bright Holdings the next morning in full power mode, heels clicking, board members standing, assistants scrambling. But her eyes searched the glass windows sometimes, and her mind wandered to a quiet room with a single bed. Desmond, on the other hand, stared at the ceiling at night, replaying their last kiss over and over. They were both back to their worlds. But their hearts hadn't moved on. Desmond Okocha had grown used to silence, but this one stung more than usual. It had been 3 weeks since Leah left. No messages, no calls. He had dialed her number countless times, each one ending the same way. The number you are trying to reach is currently unavailable. At first, he told himself maybe she'd traveled to some rural village, somewhere without proper signal. He clung to that idea for comfort, but every passing day chipped away at that hope. He missed her, more than he thought possible. At the same time, something entirely different was unfolding behind the scenes. The police had received a quiet tip about a security staff member at Aurora Heights with a sealed criminal history. In a building filled with billionaires and political figures, any kind of unknown background set off alarms. And so, Officer Naomi Okafor, the sharpest female investigator and daughter of the chief of police, was assigned the case. When the name Desmond Okocha crossed her desk, her eyebrows lifted in curiosity. She knew the name. Naomi walked into Aurora Heights one afternoon, her badge tucked under her blazer. She wore her usual no-nonsense look, though something inside her stirred when she realized Desmond was the man she'd heard whispers about, the one Leah had confessed she was falling for. She found him by the security post, standing tall, posture straight, eyes alert. Mr. Okocha? She said. Desmond turned and nodded. Yes, ma'am. I'm Officer Naomi Okafor. I need a few minutes of your time regarding a background review. Desmond's face didn't shift. Of course. Anything you need. Inside the interview room, Desmond sat calmly as Naomi reviewed the file in front of her. You were arrested 5 years ago, she said, involved in a street fight that left one person hospitalized. Desmond nodded. I was trying to protect a teenage boy from a gang. He was being beaten. I stepped in. One of them had a knife. It escalated. You served time? I was held for a few nights. The charges were dropped after witnesses confirmed my story. Naomi studied him. Why didn't you mention this during your application? Desmond met her eyes. Because people hear the word arrest and stop listening after that. Naomi didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked at him closely. His steady gaze, his calm tone, his quiet humility. He wasn't what she expected. Over the next few days, Naomi did her job. She spoke to people from Desmond's old city, read the reports, cross-checked the records, and everything he told her was true. He had been a mentor to troubled teens, a protector, not a predator. Her admiration for him grew, and something else, something softer. One afternoon, after wrapping up her report, she ran into Desmond again near the elevators. He was surprised to see her. I didn't know you lived here, he said. I moved in not long ago, Naomi replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. Long story. They chatted briefly about the building, about work. Naomi found herself laughing more than she expected. Desmond, though polite, still seemed distant, his eyes occasionally drifting toward the glass doors as if searching for someone. That evening, Naomi returned home and sat by the window, watching the security post below. Desmond stood there, phone in hand, calling again and again. Still no answer. She watched him lower the phone, his shoulders dropping ever so slightly. He missed Leah. And he had no idea just how close she really was. The weekend sun cast a soft golden glow across Brightford, and the usually busy lobby of Aurora Heights was quieter than usual. The guards barely looked up when the sleek black SUV pulled into the underground driveway reserved for VVIP access. Only a few people in the city had clearance to use that entrance. Leah Bright was one of them. She stepped out, dressed in simple jeans and a loose sweatshirt, her hair tucked into a baseball cap. She didn't want attention, not today. She just needed to see him, even if only from afar. She quietly took the private elevator straight to the top floor, where Naomi's penthouse overlooked most of the city. Naomi opened the door, surprised but happy. "Leah, you're a stranger these days." "I know," Leah said with a tired smile, slipping inside and dropping her bag. "Work's been crazy. The board is restless, and my mom—" "Don't even ask." Naomi raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Leah wandered to the window and looked down. He was there, at the security post, in his uniform. Still as calm, still as focused, her heart ached. "I came to see Desmond," she said softly. Naomi stood still. "From here, I don't want to run into him," Leah continued. "I know it's been a long time. I've been meaning to call, every day actually, but something always pulls me back." Naomi tilted her head. "Why?" Leah turned around. "Because I want to tell him the truth, about everything, about who I really am. I don't want to lie anymore. He deserves to know, and I want to be the one to tell him. But first, I need to put things in order at the company." Naomi nodded slowly, trying to keep her expression steady. "Have you seen him? Talked to him?" Leah asked, eyes scanning her friend's face. There was a pause. Naomi hesitated. Just a little too long. Then she smiled and shook her head. "No, not really." She didn't tell her about the investigation. She didn't tell her she had spoken to Desmond, more than once, and that she had started to look forward to it. Even admire him, even feel something. No, she couldn't say any of that. Because Desmond wasn't just some man. He was Leah's man. Or at least, that's what she told herself every time she felt the heat rise in her cheeks when she thought about him. So she lied. "No," she repeated, her voice firm this time. "We haven't really crossed paths." Leah smiled, relief in her eyes. "Good, I mean not good, but you know what I mean." Naomi nodded and looked away. The days that followed Leah's visit to Naomi's penthouse felt heavier than usual. For Naomi Okafor, the weight was personal. Despite trying to stay distant, she kept running into Desmond. At the elevator, when he was doing his routine checks, by the mailboxes. Even at the building's small rooftop garden, where she often went to clear her head. Each time Desmond greeted her with his usual warm smile, respectful and calm, and each time Naomi felt her heart flutter, then sink. She knew the truth. She knew Leah loved him. But every time she spoke to him, it felt like she was talking to someone who had quietly crept into her own dreams. She told herself it would pass, that it was just admiration. But one evening, standing beside him by the elevator after a random chat about the weather and a funny resident, Naomi couldn't hold it in anymore. "Desmond," she said suddenly, her voice quieter than usual. He turned to her, eyebrows raised gently. I like you," she said. "Not just as a friend or neighbor. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't. And I know I shouldn't, but I had to tell you." Desmond looked at her, stunned for a moment. Then his expression softened into something kind but final. "Naomi," he said gently, "you're a good woman. You're strong and honest, and I respect you." Naomi's heart raced, waiting for the but she knew was coming. "But I already have someone," he continued. "Someone I love very much." Naomi blinked. "The girl you told me about before, the one who left?" Desmond nodded. "Yes, and the day I see her again, I'm marrying her." Naomi swallowed hard. She forced a small smile. "Do you even know who I am?" Desmond chuckled. "I do. My colleagues won't stop gossiping. the only daughter of the police chief who hangs out with our boss, the one and only Inspector Okafor. Naomi's smile became real, even through the sting in her chest. She was heartbroken, but also proud. Because Leah had found the kind of love that wasn't blinded by wealth or status. A man who would reject the daughter of the chief of police without a second thought, for a woman who once slept on his couch and shared boiled yam. "I'm happy for you," Naomi said honestly. "Both of you." Desmond nodded. "Thank you." And they left it at that. Meanwhile, at Bright Holdings, Leah sat in her sleek, glass-walled office, flipping through contracts, when her assistant buzzed in. "Ma'am, you have a visitor. He's insisting you'll want to see him." Leah frowned. "Who is it?" "Ronald Kingsley." Her heart skipped, but not in a good way. "Send him in," she said coldly. The door swung open, and in walked Ronald, tall, well-dressed, and as arrogant as ever. The heir to Kingsley Corp, Bright Holdings' biggest rival. "Leah," he said with that smug grin she used to fall for, "you're even more stunning now." "What do you want, Ronald?" she asked without getting up. "I miss you," he said, walking closer. "I made mistakes back then, but I still love you. We were good together." Leah stared at him like he'd just crawled out of a bad memory. "You cheated on me with my classmate in the US, she said sharply. "In my apartment, on my birthday." Ronald smirked, unbothered. "We were young." "No, you were disgusting," she snapped, "and I was blind." Ronald's smile dropped. "I'm not interested," Leah said, standing now. "Not then, not now, not ever. Get out." Ronald took a step back, eyes darkening. "You'll regret this," he said. "Nobody talks to me like that." Leah crossed her arms. "Then it's about time someone did." He stormed out, slamming the glass door behind him. Leah exhaled and sat down. She didn't need boys with egos and money. She needed someone real, and her heart already knew who that was. A few days later, the tension in Brightford's corporate world could be sliced with a knife. News had spread fast. Bright Holdings and Kingsley Corp were going head-to-head in a high-stakes bid for a government smart city contract worth billions. The deal would change the future of either company forever. Behind the boardroom battles, Ronald Kingsley was already playing dirty. He couldn't stand the idea of Leah, the woman who humiliated him, winning anything, especially not against him. So he did what he did best. Sabotage. The night before the bidding, Desmond Okocha received a call from an old friend who worked with a private security contractor. "Bro," his friend said, "Bright Tech needs extra hands tomorrow for the CEO's security during the bidding. Just a few hours work, but they're paying well. Interested?" Desmond hesitated. The name Bright made his chest tighten. But money had been tight lately, and he was already saving every extra coin for something special, a wedding. His wedding, with Leah. Something in him told him she would be back soon, and he needed to be ready for their wedding. "Send me the details," Desmond said. "I'm in." The next morning, Desmond dressed in a crisp black security uniform, a discreet earpiece in his ear, standing tall near a black SUV parked at the side entrance of Golden Crown Hotel, where the bidding was set to take place. Leah and her team were scheduled to arrive in a convoy of 3 vehicles, but Ronald's men had a different plan. As the Bright Holdings convoy approached a narrow bend near a construction zone, a large black van sped out from a hidden alley, headed straight for the middle car. Desmond, standing with the dispatch team, saw it happen in a split second. Too fast. Too close. Without thinking, he shouted into his earpiece, bolted across the road, and waved the incoming cars to a stop. But the van didn't stop. It accelerated. Desmond rushed to the driver of Leah's vehicle and yanked the steering wheel just in time, veering the car off the path of a full-speed collision. The van slammed into a side pole, damaging itself instead. Bright Holdings staff scrambled in panic, security swarming. Desmond turned to check if the CEO was okay, and then he froze. It was her. Leah stepped out of the car, shaken but unharmed, her hand pressed against her chest. "Desmond," she whispered. He stared at her, stunned. "No, not Leah," he murmured, voice low. "Leah Bright." It all made sense now. She took a step forward, eyes shining. "Desmond, I wanted to tell you. I was going to. I just—" "Don't," he said, backing away. His heart raced, but it wasn't from the crash. It was the feeling of betrayal. He looked at her, at the rich heiress, the CEO, the woman who had been living in his small apartment pretending to be a nobody. He had given her his trust, his heart, his future, and now, this. "Are you okay?" he asked coldly, glancing at her but not meeting her eyes. She nodded slowly, tears building. "Good," he said. "That's all that matters." And with that he turned and walked away, disappearing into the uniformed crowd. Leah stood there, frozen. Then the tears fell. Right there in front of everyone. Not because of the crash, but because she had just watched the man she loved walk out of her life. The echoes of the near crash still lingered in Leah Bright's mind, long after Desmond vanished into the crowd of uniforms. She didn't chase after him. She couldn't. Not with cameras flashing and reporters already swarming the scene. "Miss Bright! Miss Bright!" one journalist called out, shoving a mic toward her face. "Who was the man that pulled you out of the car?" another shouted. Leah stood tall, her chest still tight with heartbreak, but her voice was steady. "He is the reason I'm standing here today," she said calmly. "His name is Desmond Okocha. He risked his life to save mine and my entire team." There was a ripple of murmurs among the press. "A security guard?" someone whispered. But Leah didn't flinch. She looked directly into the cameras. "I owe him everything." Later that evening, Bright Holdings was officially announced as the winning bidder for the government's smart city contract. Applause thundered across the ballroom as champagne flowed, crystal glasses clinked, and executives shook hands with pride. But there was more news. News that sent shockwaves through the corporate world. Ronald Kingsley, the once untouchable heir of Kingsley Corp., was arrested on the same day. Fraud. Money laundering. Evidence traced back to shell companies used to bribe city officials, the very officials who were supposed to oversee the bidding process. He was led out of his home in handcuffs, shouting that it was a setup. But no one listened. His fall was quick and brutal. Karma had arrived. At the luxurious celebration hosted by Bright Holdings at the city's grandest hotel, Leah stood before a crowd of investors, board members, and high-profile partners. Dressed in a sleek emerald gown, she looked every inch the powerful CEO, but her heart was still aching. She raised her champagne glass and tapped it gently. The room grew silent. "Before we toast to success," she began, "I want to tell you all the truth." People leaned in. "Many of you know that yesterday, on the way to the bidding, I was nearly involved in a fatal accident. What you don't know is that someone saved me." She paused. "He wasn't wearing a suit. He didn't come in a luxury car. He's not part of our executive team. His name is Desmond Okocha, and he was a security guard, just doing his job." A few gasps filled the room. "But he didn't just do his job. He threw himself into danger to protect me. And he did it without knowing who I really was. He values people, even without knowing their name or net worth. He protects the weak and fights for the just." There was a beat of silence as everyone waited. "I lied to him," she said softly, her voice breaking a little. "I hid behind a fake name. I wanted to know what it felt like to be seen for who I really am. Not my last name, not my company, but me." Murmurs passed through the crowd like a slow wave. "I never thought I'd find love in the most unexpected place," she whispered. "And I might have lost it too." She raised her glass once more. "To the man who saved my life and showed me what real strength looks like. To Desmond Okocha." The crowd slowly erupted into applause, some clapping politely, others standing in shock, but Leah's eyes weren't on them. They were at the entrance, waiting, hoping, wishing he'd walk in. But he didn't walk in. As Leah stood beneath the golden chandeliers of the grand ballroom, surrounded by applause and admiration, her heart remained still. Desmond never appeared. The next morning, however, his name was everywhere. The security guard who saved a billionaire CEO. From uniform to hero, Desmond Okocha's brave act captivates a nation. Office of the President praises Okocha's bravery. The media couldn't get enough of him. News outlets scrambled to find photos, background stories, anything they could. Talk shows invited him. Security firms, tech startups, and even private political offices reached out with offers of high-paying positions. Some called him the People's Protector. Others hailed him as the Gentleman Guard. But through it all, Desmond remained grounded. He gave only one short interview where he simply said, "I did what I hope anyone would do. I just wanted to make sure she was safe." A week later, Leah reached out privately. She asked for one thing, a quiet dinner. Just the two of them. No cameras, no headlines. He agreed. That evening, in a private restaurant tucked in a quiet part of Brightford, Leah walked in dressed simply but elegantly, her face bare, her heart vulnerable. Desmond was already seated, looking calm but clearly unsure. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, standing to pull out her chair. They sat. There was a long pause before Leah finally spoke. "I'm sorry," she said, "for lying, for hiding. I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted to know what it felt like to be known for me." Desmond nodded slowly. "I understand. I just wish you had told me sooner." Leah looked down. "I wanted to. Every day." Desmond was quiet for a moment, then said, "It's a lot, Leah. Or Leah." "You can still call me Leah," she whispered. He gave a small smile. "I care about you," she said, reaching across the table. "And I'm not asking you to jump into anything right now, but I want to be with you, if you'll have me." Desmond looked at her hand, then back into her eyes. "I love you," he said honestly, "but I don't know if I'm ready to live in your world." "It's our world if we make it," Leah said. "I need time," he said gently. She nodded, eyes glistening. "I understand." They finished the meal quietly. At the end of the night, Desmond walked her to her car. She turned before stepping in, looked at him with teary eyes and said, "I believe we'll meet again." And he didn't reply with words. But his eyes, they said it all. He loved her too. With Desmond Okocha now thrust into the spotlight, his once quiet world had become a magnet for attention, not all of it welcome. Among the swarm of congratulatory messages and offers came a name from his past that made him uneasy. Emily, Desmond's ex. She showed up at his apartment one evening, uninvited but confident, dressed in designer heels and too much perfume. Her voice carried that same sugary sweetness she had always used to get her way. "Desmond," she cooed, placing a hand on his arm. "Look at you. You've made something of yourself. I knew you would." Desmond gently pulled his arm away, his jaw tense. "Emily, what are you doing here?" She smiled, tilting her head. "I was wrong, okay? I was confused. You know how things were. I needed stability. But now, maybe we can start over." Desmond stared at her. "You left me when I had nothing. You said I was too poor for you, that I had no future." "I didn't mean it like that," she said quickly. "People change. I haven't changed in the way you think," he replied calmly. "I may be known now, but I'm still the same man you walked away from." She tried again, leaning closer. "I can be what you need, Desmond." But he shook his head. "I'm already in love," he said firmly. "And it's not with you." Emily's smile vanished. Her eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this," she said coldly before storming out. "You think she's better than me. You'll see." The next day at Aurora Heights, Naomi overheard a familiar voice near the front lobby. Curious, she followed the sound to find one of the guards, Mr. Andrew, a man who had always been jealous of Desmond, speaking to none other than the strange-looking woman she had seen talking to Desmond the previous day. She was sure they were up to no good, and she was right. They were spreading twisted stories about Desmond and his new heiress girlfriend, claiming he was just chasing money like everyone else. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Later that evening, Naomi confronted Emily head-on, calmly but powerfully exposing her lies in front of a small gathering of staff, residents, and management. She laid out evidence of Emily's past relationship with several married rich men and politicians,
Even while she was in a relationship with Desmond, how she left him when he was struggling, and her current manipulations.
Humiliated and defeated, Emily fled the building, her plan shattered. Later that night, Naomi invited Leah over and told her everything. "I thought you should know," Naomi said, nervously fiddling with her bracelet. "Emily, Desmond's ex tried to get back with him. I stopped her, but that's not all." Leah listened quietly. "I need to confess something," Naomi continued. "I fell for him too. I didn't mean to, it just happened, and I told him how I felt." Leah's expression didn't change. "He turned me down," Naomi added softly. "He said he loved someone else. I didn't need him to say your name. I already knew." Leah looked at her friend, not with anger, but with deep understanding. "We don't choose who we fall in love with," Leah said gently. "And you were honest. That's what matters." Naomi's eyes widened in surprise. "You're not mad?" Leah shook her head. "I respect you, and I know your heart." They hugged, a bond of sisterhood forming stronger than ever. When they pulled apart, Leah's eyes sparkled with determination. "I'm going to win him back," she said with a small smile. "Whatever it takes." Naomi smiled back. "Then I'm rooting for you. He is worth the effort." While the city still buzzed with Desmond's newfound fame and Leah navigated the tender ache of separation, another figure had quietly been watching it all unfold, Mrs. Helena Bright. Leah's mother was a woman of grace and steel, someone who measured people with her eyes and judged them with her instincts. She had built empires with her late husband and protected their family name with the tenacity of a lioness. And now, her daughter's heart was in the hands of a man she had never met. That worried her. She didn't doubt Desmond's bravery. It had made headlines. But character, that was harder to measure. Was he truly in love with Leah, or was he just another man blinded by fortune? To find out, Helena made a quiet decision. She sent her trusted assistant, Mrs. Opara, to visit Desmond with a tempting offer. It was late afternoon when Desmond heard a knock on his modest door. He opened it to see a well-dressed woman holding a leather briefcase and standing beside a uniformed driver. "Mr. Okocha?" she asked politely. "Yes. I represent Mrs. Helena Bright. May we speak privately?" Desmond let her in, confused but polite. Over the next few minutes, she laid it all out, calmly, formally. A luxury car, a fully furnished condo in Brightford's elite district, and a check for $5 million. "In exchange for what?" Desmond asked, his voice quiet but firm. "For walking away from Miss Leah Bright, peacefully, with respect." Desmond stood, walked to the window, and took a long breath. Then he turned around. "Tell Mrs. Bright I don't want her money, or her car, or her apartment." Mrs. Opara blinked. "Sir, perhaps you don't understand." "No, I understand perfectly," Desmond said calmly. "I love her, but I won't beg to be in her life, and I won't sell my dignity for comfort. If Leah chooses me, it has to be real, and I have to be worthy, not because of what I'm given, but because of who I am." Mrs. Opara stared at him. Desmond continued, "Even if I never end up with her, I'd rather earn my place in this world than buy it." She nodded slowly and left. The next morning, at the Bright family mansion, Leah stood by her window, suitcase beside her, determination in her eyes. Her conversation with Naomi had given her clarity. She was ready. If going to Desmond's world was what it took to get him back, she would go. Just as she zipped her bag, the door creaked open. Her mother walked in. "Going somewhere?" Helena asked, eyes sharp but calm. "I was going to stay with Desmond," Leah replied, her voice steady. "I want to fight for him." Helena sighed and walked to the bed. "No need," she said. "I already visited him." Leah turned sharply. "You what?" "I sent Mrs. Opara. I offered him wealth, comfort, everything he never had." Leah's eyes widened. "Mom, he refused it all," Helena said softly. "Every last thing." Leah's heart swelled, tears filling her eyes. "I'm not surprised," she whispered. "That's who he is." Her mother nodded slowly. He's one of a kind. Then she took Leah's hands in hers. But I want to be sure, not for me, for you. Leah furrowed her brows. I have one final test for him, Helena said. If he passes it, I'll give you both everything. My support, my blessing. I'll make sure no one stands in your way. Leah looked into her mother's eyes, uncertain. What kind of test? Helena's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. You'll see. Though unsure of what her mother had planned, Leah slowly nodded. She would trust her for now. Because something in her mother's eyes told her she wasn't trying to tear them apart. She was preparing to bring them together. 3 days later, rain poured steadily over Brightford, painting the city in streaks of grey and silver. The skies groaned with thunder as water splashed over sidewalks and gushed through gutters. At the gate of Aurora Heights, Desmond Okocha stood at his post, holding a small umbrella as he monitored the entrance. That's when he saw her. A frail, elderly woman soaked to the bone, her clothes tattered and sticking to her shivering frame. She clutched a bag to her chest and stumbled slightly as she tried to find shelter beneath a tree. Desmond didn't hesitate. He rushed over, gently placed the umbrella over her and said, Ma, you'll catch a cold out here. Please come inside. She looked up at him with tired, grateful eyes, but said nothing. He led her into the security post, carefully helping her into a chair and pulling the small heater closer. He took out a towel from the drawer and handed it to her, then poured her a cup of warm tea from his flask. The woman's hands shook slightly as she sipped. Mrs. Helena Bright, in disguise, said nothing more than a hoarse, "Thank you." She watched Desmond closely as he quietly fetched a dry wrapper from a corner and placed it around her shoulders. Not once did he ask who she was. Not once did he look at her with pity or suspicion. Only kindness. Meanwhile, across the room, Andrew and Aaron, Desmond's subordinates, watched from their desk. Andrew leaned close and whispered, "Look at that. Okocha's got a talent for dragging strays into the building." Aaron smirked. "Maybe he's planning to start a shelter next, always picking up dirt." They snickered. What they didn't know was that the old woman had excellent hearing. Mrs. Helena heard every word. Still, she said nothing. She simply observed. Desmond, oblivious to their chatter, stayed near the woman, occasionally refilling her tea and checking if she was warm enough. When the rain finally stopped, she slowly rose to her feet. "Let me take you home," Desmond offered. "No, son," she said, her voice more confident than before. "I can find my way." "At least let me pay for a cab," he insisted. She shook her head, but he was already dialing. Minutes later, a private cab pulled up. Desmond helped her inside and handed her a small folded note, money for the ride and some food. "Take care of yourself, Ma," he said gently. As the door closed and the car drove off, the woman turned and looked at him through the rain-specked window. Her eyes softened, and a quiet smile spread across her face. Later that evening, in the grand sitting room of the Bright mansion, Helena returned, her wet disguise now replaced by silk robes and dry slippers. Leah rushed to her. "Mom, where were you in this rain?" Helena took a deep breath, sat down, and looked at her daughter. "I went to meet him," she said simply. Leah blinked. "Desmond?" Her mother nodded, in disguise. Leah's heart skipped. "And?" Helena looked her daughter in the eye, no longer a skeptic, now simply a mother, deeply moved. "That man," she said softly, "has a golden heart." Leah's breath caught. A slow smile curved on her lips, and her hand pressed against her chest, right over the part that ached with longing. Because she knew it too, and now her feelings for Desmond weren't just love. They were certainty. It was a quiet afternoon in Brightford, the clouds still heavy from the recent rains. The city was calm, but Desmond Okocha's heart was anything but. He stood outside a small cafe tucked between two flower shops, staring at a message on his phone. It had arrived earlier that morning. "Please meet me at Café Soleil by 3 p.m. H. Bright." He knew the name, and he had a strong feeling about who it belonged to. He stepped inside, the scent of brewed coffee and vanilla rising in the air. The place was cozy, dimly lit, with soft jazz playing in the background. At the far end of the room, sitting with grace and elegance, was Mrs. Helena Bright. She waved him over with a small smile. "Mr. Okocha," she said as he approached. "Thank you for coming." Desmond nodded politely, uncertain but respectful. "Good afternoon, Ma." She gestured to the seat opposite her. "Please sit." After a brief moment of silence, she spoke. "I was the woman in the rain," she said. Desmond's eyes widened. "You?" She nodded. "I dressed as a poor, helpless old woman. I wanted to see who you really were. Not what the media says, not what my daughter sees, but you." Desmond leaned back, stunned. "Why?" "Because I'm a mother," Helena said simply. And no mother hands over her child's heart without being sure. Desmond swallowed hard, unsure of what to say. "I watched you," she continued. "You didn't hesitate to help me. You gave me warmth, dignity, even your own money, and you didn't know who I was." He looked down, the memory still fresh. "She told me about you, Desmond," Helena said, her voice softer now. "About how you saved her that day on the rooftop, though she wasn't trying to kill herself. But your talk with her made her accept who she was. She had just lost her father and was conflicted. But after she met you, she knew what she had to do. She said you saw her, not the heiress, not the CEO, but her." Desmond's eyes welled slightly. "She was willing to leave everything behind to be with you," Helena said gently. "She lived in your home, ate your food, slept under your roof, and never once did she complain." He nodded slowly, pain flickering in his eyes. I didn't know. I felt deceived. She should have told me earlier instead of how she left me hanging, longing." "She didn't plan it," Helena said. "She was scared, but not one of you, of what it all meant." Desmond stayed quiet. "I know now that you love her. I can see it. The way your eyes soften when her name is mentioned. The way you speak about her in interviews without even realizing it." She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Don't beat yourself up for feeling hurt," she said, "but don't let that hurt keep you from what you truly want." Desmond looked up at her. "It's not good to keep the heart waiting, Desmond," she added gently. "Time has a way of stealing what we thought we'd always have." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Desmond alone in the cafe, surrounded by the hum of background music and the stir of brewing emotions. And for the first time in weeks, his heart beat not with confusion, but with clarity. The city lights shimmered gently under the evening sky as Desmond Okocha stood in front of the towering gates of the bright mansion. His heart thumped, not from fear, but from love. Real love. The kind that waits, forgives, and still hopes. After his heart-to-heart with Mrs. Helena Bright, the walls around his heart had crumbled, replaced by the certainty of what he needed to do. He needed her. He was ushered in, and there she was, Leah standing in the garden, the soft light wrapping around her like a warm promise. She turned at the sound of footsteps. Their eyes met. Neither said a word for a moment. Then Desmond stepped closer. "I love you," he said. "I tried to be strong. I tried to walk away. But I can't." Leah's breath hitched. "I don't care if we come from two different worlds," he continued. "You are my world, and I don't want to spend another day without you." Tears rolled down Leah's cheeks. "I loved you," she whispered, "even before you knew me. When I was just Leah. That's when I fell." They met in the middle, and their embrace said everything their words couldn't. Leah returned to Bright Holdings, her leadership stronger, her smile warmer. The board welcomed her with respect and awe, not just for her brilliance, but for the quiet, kind man who began showing up at her side. Desmond turned down every high-end job offer that came after his fame. No corporate security, no politics, no celebrity endorsements. He chose to work at Bright Holdings, not as a figurehead or a showpiece, but as her personal head of security, to protect her, support her, and walk beside her. Leah was honored. And with him by her side, the company flourished even more. Her confidence soared, her laughter returned, and so did the spark in her eyes. Their wedding was simple, beautiful, and deeply personal, held in a garden surrounded by flowers, close friends, and family. Leah wore an elegant gown that shimmered like morning dew. She was glowing, breathtaking, the most beautiful bride. Desmond wore a soft grey suit and never stopped smiling. Officer Naomi sat near the front, a soft smile on her lips. She had long let go of the ache in her heart and replaced it with genuine joy. Desmond was never hers to love, but seeing him happy, seeing Leah happy, filled her heart with peace. She clapped the loudest when they said, "I do." And Mrs. Helena Bright? She couldn't stop smiling. Her only child had found a man who truly loved her, and didn't just say it, but showed it. 1 year later, laughter filled a different room. Leah sat on a hospital bed, cradling a tiny baby wrapped in a pink blanket. Desmond stood beside her, eyes glistening with tears of awe and gratitude. Their daughter blinked up at them, her little fingers curling around Desmond's thumb. They named her Eden. That same month, Desmond officially launched the Golden Heart Foundation, a home and training center for ex-convicts and underprivileged youth, helping them find direction, dignity, and hope, just like he once needed. And so their story didn't just end. It began again, with love, with purpose, and with the birth of something pure. A woman who had everything, and a man who had nothing but heart. Together they built forever, just like he once needed.